The state of Indiana just introduced a new bill. They're following this national trend of trying to protect parental rights. And so they've got a new bill now, SB 413, that would, among other things, try to protect children from this ongoing sexualization at school. And it would also seek to promote transparency so that parents can know what their children are being taught, what kind of surveys they've been getting, what kind of quote unquote services they're going to be receiving, especially related to their social, emotional, mental, physical, and behavioral health. A big part of this is the transgender stuff, right? You've had schools all over the country now that have been caught transitioning children to a new gender without getting the parents involved. The kid comes to school, changes into a dress, starts using female pronouns, gets put on puberty blockers, and the parents are kept in the dark the whole time. So this legislation, SB 413, is aimed at trying to rein some of that in. There's also prohibition on providing instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in K through 12, which goes a step further than the bill in Florida, which only blocked it until third grade. But there's something of a loophole in here in that the instruction is allowed if it is considered age appropriate and in accordance with state law. So not really sure how big of a loophole that is. I asked a few people. We'll see what comes out of it. There's also going to be an effort to amend that to restrict this teaching no matter what. So we'll see what happens with that. And then finally, any surveys or questionnaires or things like that the school wants to give to children first have to be shown to the parents, and then the parents are going to have to actually give their consent to that, and no so-called services are going to be offered to children based on the results of those surveys, again, without the written consent of parents. So if a survey shows that a child supposedly has some mental health issue or whatever, the school can't just start providing services. They've got to bring the parents into the loop and ask about that. And then finally, another critical point in this bill is that there is an enforcement mechanism. Parents have a way to file a complaint with the school, and then the school's leaders are instructed or basically ordered to deal with it. If they don't, they need to explain it. And then if the issue doesn't get resolved, then the parents can eventually file a lawsuit. So I did get some comments from the senator who introduced this, Indiana Senator Gary Byrne. He says that the goal is to fight the indoctrination and the sexualization of children in schools. And he also said that this is what his constituents are demanding. He says this is what parents want. This is even what a lot of teachers in his district want. They're concerned about what's happening in the schools. And he says the schools are for education, not indoctrination, and that he promised his constituents that he was going to fight to protect children, and that is what he plans to do. I also talked to the nonprofit Purple for Parents of Indiana organization, grassroots, very influential organization. They're working to protect parental rights and family things. And the president of that group, Rhonda Miller, said that she is fully, and the organization is fully in support of Senator Byrne's efforts to protect children and to protect parental rights. She said this is actually the only comprehensive bill in either chamber right now, the Indiana State House, that actually protects these rights on multiple fronts. And she is interested in the possibility of some amendments, but she does say that this bill reinforces the fundamental right of parents to make the decisions about the upbringing of their children. As I mentioned, these parental rights bills, I covered this at the Newman Report. They've been proliferating all over the country. More and more states have passed bills like this into law. And also in Indiana, there are multiple efforts to protect children. Last week, we actually talked about one that protects children from these so-called transgender surgeries and castration and other quackery. Masquerading as medicine. And so there are actually criminal charges, criminal penalties there if a doctor or a healthcare provider of some sort or even a school were to do this. In some cases, it can actually be classified as felony child abuse to chop off a child's private parts and things like that. So big moves now. I think people are finally fed up with this, and I think it's a really good sign that lawmakers and politicians are talking about it. I mean, that means that obviously the message of parents is starting to break through. But it's also a bad sign in that this avalanche of extremism has gotten so serious that now all across the country, we're actually having to pass laws saying that you can't groom children for transgenderism and you can't chop off their private parts, and you can't ask them intrusive questions without parental permission. You would think this stuff would be pretty basic, but at the end of the day, if parents refuse to protect their own children, nobody's going to be able to do it for them, not the politicians, not the school boards, not Biden or Trump or anybody else. This is really a parental responsibility.